Hey guys, this is Emily, and you are about to watch a clip from Playing the Glass Bead Game, episode number 11, with myself and Michael Wan. Um, this episode was a little bit different than the others. We're all over the place in this one. In this clip, you're about to sort of watch us reflect on last week's episode and sort of expound on some of that, which leads us into some of the further connections and beads for this week. But the other thing that came up in this episode was some of the sometimes physical effects that the game has on the player. Now, I have worked through this before in the past when certain levels of programming and dealing with trauma have come forward. They always seem to be accompanied by certain sensations and feelings in the body. And we both seem to be experiencing that right now, which is evidence that as much fun and however interesting and exciting all of these connections that we've been making in the game are, it is actually part of the process of sort of reclaiming ourselves and recovering memories and working through experiences that we've had. And even though we're in sort of a different place now, or at least I am, but I assume Michael, than some of the other times in our life where we've had, a lot of struggles with this, we're having a lot more fun and we're really learning a lot right now. There is still this sort of physiological effects, and paying attention to them may also be some really interesting clues to how all of this works and is put together and what role the body has in a game that seems largely mental. Anywho, so we talked about that. We got into a lot of different topics today. There was some continuation on some of the threads from last week, particularly as they relate to Deborah Harry and the way she kind of is involved in all sorts of mental game for me. But we talked about memories and dreams. We talked about we told some interesting personal stories. We talked about the body, as I said, and then we did some gameplay around a recent trip that I had to Dallas that somehow wound us into a conversation about birds, Tina Turner, and it all somehow led us back to Chatsworth. Anywho, it was an interesting episode. Some new ideas and aspects of the game were sort of brought forward. And as usual, we had a lot of fun doing it. If you would like to see the full episode, you can become a patron or a supporter on Locals, and how to do that is below in the description. If you would like a complimentary episode or a day at the cafe where we play the game in an interactive manner, please contact me and we will make that happen. And so enjoy the clip and hopefully we'll see you soon. All right, guys, have a good one. All right, everybody, welcome back. This is Playing the Glass Bead Game, number 11. We're going to do some iteration here of like rolling the dice or dealer's choice. We're entering into this a little differently than we usually do. Michael Wan is with me. We started chatting before the show and we got to something that we thought would be interesting, but then we pushed pause on that and had our meeting about something totally else and didn't do any pre-show. So the pre-show is the show. Michael, how are you? And then we'll get back into our discussion about negotiating prices.
So like this goes in my head every time like you introduce me on our show together. Like and Michael's here with us today. And I'm like, this is our show. What do you mean I'm here today? This is like it's not like I'm coming on your show. This is our show.
This is our show.
This is our show. So I'm here with Michael. So what I liked was, and I can see this, I can imagine you as a teenager, because the truth of the matter is this. We don't have any preparation for today's show. We have absolutely no preparation. We didn't talk about what we're going to talk about. And I was listening to you position this to all those people listening at home. And you didn't exactly say like, hey, guess what? We didn't prep for it. You're like, oh, we're doing it this way because of that. And I'm like, I bet you she did that when she was a teenage girl. She's coming home. She's making an excuse. She's setting the table so when people can understand her story, they're like, oh, okay. Yeah. That makes sense. But here's the truth, folks. There's no preparation today. This is rolling the dice. This is dealer's choice. We don't know what's going to happen. But to be truthful, even when we play and it never goes is the way we play it anyway. So there really isn't much. The only difference is the transparency. Maybe that's what this episode is about, transparency.
Oh, maybe. I think we're coming to a certain level of that just in reality right now. But anyway, I wanted to say, I'm sure everybody else knows this in case you don't, but this is the time of the week that I look forward to more than any other time. Right? My time that I get to spend with you playing the glass bead game. So when I'm saying Michael is here with me, it's like, oh, I've been waiting all week and now Michael is finally here with me.
Now I don't know if I'm now falling into this charm, because it's like, I'm like, oh, okay. And like, I'm listening to everything. And then I remembered what you did when the show began. And then I was like, am I falling for like, I didn't fall for trick number one, but now I'm like, okay, Emily, I'll do whatever you say.
Well, both things are true, right?
Both things are true. Oh, well, right? Thank you very much. This is my most consistent show, and I greatly not only do I enjoy it, but what is most interesting for me is watching how this is gathering form in this very organic sort of way. And as this becomes more natural in terms of like, I anticipate this within my week, and how everything works around it just in regular managing life. And it's been a lot of fun. And then also just the whole thing of like intertwining lives, knowing each other and seeing all of that. So that's been a lot of fun. And hopefully that translates as well to the folks watching, beyond just the conversation is we're in a time right now where everyone's being compartmentalized. And so this is a way which maybe we're breaking down some of those barriers.
Yeah. And sort of on that note, I just wanted to let you know, because, we sometimes we communicate more than others but we got a lot of response on the last show, like people who've never requested episodes before or whatnot. Like we're like, okay, this is the one that made me have to sort of check it out and sign up and whatnot. And yeah, so there was something we scratched at there that sort of resonated for people.
What do you think it was?
Well, I think the combination of things was interesting. It was an unusual, we didn't set out to do a show about cats, bats, vampires, and atomic blondes, but that's what happened. And so I just named it that, right? And those are all very archetypical type of things. And just the way some of the personal, I think for my own self, that since I started talking on the YouTube 4 or 5 years ago, there are certain oddities about my personal story that for some reason there's a group of people out there that is like, thank God somebody finally said it, because I had that sort of same weird thing or hunch or blah, 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 but you don't want to say it because you're going to end up in a straitjacket and, or whatever. So I say it and then they're like, okay, I guess she's not in a straitjacket, or at least not yet. Right. So I can acknowledge it. So I think some of that weirdness, like with the Deborah Harry stuff, right? I think there's a lot of people who have those I don't think it's unique to me or special, makes me or a special thing. I think that it's maybe the way that she was worked into my programming or my reality was unique to me, but there's lots of this going on with different characters and different people, right? And I think that one of these things that people have to get more comfortable with is if you have a hunch, it's likely true. Not if you have a hunch, we're taught to believe that we make stuff up in our mind, we exaggerate, we make, we feel these connections with famous people because we're obsessed with stardom or whatever. But this wasn't that. This was some very weird ways of feeling connected. And if you feel like there's this kind of twinning or resonance or back and forth or something that is going on with someone that, seemingly both distance wise, but also in terms of strata of society is really disconnected from you, but this connection is persistent and constant and plays into all the different facets of your life, there's likely something there. And so I think maybe that when I talk about things in that way, it gives people permission to look at that without being judgmental of themselves as what is this? Am I just obsessed with this celebrity kind of thing, right? Because there's a reason celebrities exist, and it's for this purpose. It's to shape our minds, right? And there's the way that celebrity shapes the mass culture, right? And in order to know how they want to position that person in relationship to society, they have got to do experiments with individuals or small groups first to see how this sells. And it's not just the way that, like, the same techniques that they use for deciding like which exact flavor of Coke they're going to go with, for, kind of thing. They do this with all the other things too. And there have to be people who are part of those trial groups, right? And like they convince us that all of the mind control is really about advertising as like the canard or the red herring, when it's really about like getting deep into your soul to make human behavior predictable, right? So I think it may be something like that. But I also even had magic occur when I was putting the like thumbnail together. That's one of my favorite parts of this whole process, right? Like I don't like all the editing and rendering and all that kind of stuff, but I like making the thumbnail, right? And this time, what was so cool about it was I always struggle because I don't know how to work graphics, right? Then the girl who's making the glass bead game graphics for us for our swag, she's going to give me some tutorials on how to get better at this, because I enjoy doing it. But I put all this stuff together, right? And like something funny happened where like the whole, like instead of moving around the little things I was putting on it, the actual like base picture, the bottom picture shifted itself over. But when that happened, it made this arrow, because I had this number 10 with an arrow going into a target, right? It made the arrow go through all of the letters of the word bead, like the arrow was beading the letters, right? So it looked like beads on the arrow, right? Like it was a total mistake, but it was perfect, right? And it just kind of snaps together. And I feel like that kind of encompassed the episode, and people really seems to like it and resonate with it and connect to it. So that was really cool.
So the arrow was the magic that in the making of the thumbnail.
I'll show you. Let me see.
Yeah, let me see
the way
that.
it happened accidentally was interesting, right? Let me pull it up. Let's see. Okay. All right. It's a little blurry on this. I was having trouble getting this really clear, and that's part of the reason why.
All right, you pull that up. I'm going to go grab my arrow for a second because I want to go down this. But you pull that up.
All right. Mm-hmm. All right, we're waiting for Michael, and here we go.
Ah, I see where that middle arrow.
That middle arrow just went right through all the letters into the target. And when I was playing with it, like I didn't do that. It just all of a sudden you had this probably happen when you're working on something where all of a sudden something changes and you don't know why. Like you didn't push a button, but something moved and you can't.
No, that's never happened to me. That is your own strange relationship with the technology sphere.
Right. So I found what was interesting as I was doing it. So this is a famous mural here in Austin of a bat. And then these are the Cat's Cult stickers. And I found Deborah Harry wearing a shirt that looks sort of like a Batman kind of shirt.
That's Wu-Tang, isn't it?
It might be, but right. I just thought it was interesting with the symbolism.
Right.
And down here, I found her wearing a David Bowie shirt, which was interesting.
That's not Lou Reed?
No, that's David Bowie right there. Right. It says David Bowie on it, which we were talking
about. That's a big clue when it says the name.
And then what was interesting is there's this group called Art that does these like live DJ and musician performances now, but apparently back 30 years ago, they had they had this cover of their magazine or something like that. So I found this, right? And that's of course the name of the movie, right? That came many, many years later. So to me, this was the retro causality proof that what I say about the movie in some ways was right.
And that's Debbie Harry?
That's Debbie Harry.
It doesn't look like her from this angle. I don't doubt that it is. Like it is, like I can see by looking at the other images, but just maybe like the camera angle shooting up on her face. I thought it was someone who resembled Debbie Harry.
Yeah.
But yes, there's the retro causality.
Right. So, but I was playing with this, and playing the glass bead game stuff was up top here, and I was moving, and then all of a sudden something happened, and it just like moved on the screen, and when it landed, right, like that was what was there, and so I was like, all right. So I think like maybe that kind of sums up what happened with the episode and how it connected for people. It just like strung some beads on their necklace for them, like everything lined up, right? So, anywho,
are those darts or are those arrows?
So they're darts or arrows, or I mean, it's a similar kind of thing. But
You would know if you got shot with an arrow and if you got hit with a dart. You would know.
Those are a little longer than darts usually are.
Yeah, you're right. That it does. So you're right. I think it is an arrow.
It is kind of an arrow. I've been looking for like some perfect 10 symbolism, and then I found that, right, and it just kind of developed the rest of the stuff around it. So anywho, people liked it. So so I just wanted to say that. So thank you to everybody for all the interesting connection and comments and whatever over that. That was pretty cool. And Michael wants to share his arrow story. He still looks befuddled by something.
Well, no, you said some things which jumped off in my mind. So it's like the 10 was what's interesting. Bring that image back up. Let's go look at that image again. We're going to delve in because there was magic here, right? There was magic in this image. Something happened. So, I've got like a vested interest. Like I participated in the creation of this episode, but if I'm being totally honest, I don't remember any of our conversation. But that's just because I think they wiped my mind. Somehow it's wiped. So I'm looking at this, and the most dominant visual in this is the number 10. Right. It that's what this is about. So I'm like 10. Okay. And then you said perfect 10. You said perfect 10, which made me think of, do you remember there was a movie out in the 70s called 10?
No.
It was iconic with one particular image. Do you know who Bo Derek is?
Yeah. The blonde.
Yeah, Bo Derek, the blonde. So she was the symbol. She had
like braids and stuff, right?
Just in one movie. Because outside of the movie, she wasn't wearing the braids. But in a movie called 10, she had those braids. And there was this like famous image. Like this was like it was sizzled into the minds of the men and the women in the 70s of this beautiful Bo Derek blonde woman, Southern California. I don't even know what the movie's about, but I remember this, like she's running on the beach. And I think Dudley Moore, if you recall who Dudley Moore was, I think he was like obsessed with her or something like that. I don't know what the plot of the movie was, but it had to do with like, this woman, Bo Derek, being this perfect 10. And when we think about Debbie Harry, particularly the younger pictures of her when she was just like an absolutely stunningly beautiful woman. And this is like a very similar time frame. And so like maybe that's something like, I don't know if we want to go and pull this up in real time right now, but there's a cross reference. There's a cross reference between this Debbie Harry and this Bo Derek. All right. And what's interesting is I'm thinking about those names, like Bo and Derek are two names, and Debbie and Harry are two names, and they're both blondes, and it's the same sort of time frame. That's basically what's jumping out at me right now. Did you look at did you pull up the movie 10?
No, okay, I'm going to come back to the image in a second because I remember now that I had some more threads I wanted to pull on this with you. So let me.
All right, go down that.
Let's pull up Bo Derek and 10 though while we're here, so we don't get away from it. We'll go back because I'll remember what I.
Yeah, I want to see what jumps out. And let's see, what if my memory is totally off? So 1979, that's when it came out. So this is right in the, it was a Blake Edwards film. And it's right in the midst of like, the blondie.
There we go. Look at that. And oh my God, the 10 symbolism unit looks almost exactly like what I chose. That's okay.
All right, so go and pull in those strings, and I'm going to kind of like zoom through this, and we'll see where this goes.
Michael, are you ready? Oh, I forgot to pull it up. I'm not even screen sharing. Okay, Henry Mancini did the music for it.
Who else would do it?
All right.
So these are the images. There's that hair. And it's funny because I'm pretty certain Bo Derek, as like, the human being character, did not wear those braids other than in this film. But that's how you remembered her as well.
Yep. That's the only thing I really know about her is she was the one with the braids. But let's just check and see for a second. I think Let's just say Debbie Harry, 1979. So you said this was 1979?
1979 is when it came out.
All right. So this was. Guess what came out in 1979? I'm almost certain of it.
A Heart of Glass.
Exactly. And that was the thread I wanted to pull with you today, because I had, right after we got off yesterday, I had all this, last week, I had all this weird stuff with the Heart of Glass.